Level 1. The number. You know the number before you look. That's the part nobody talks about. The way you already know. The way your thumb hovers over the banking app for just half a second longer than it should, like your body is doing a quick cost-benefit analysis before letting you see the thing. 3 seconds. 2. You open it. 0. Not 0 like rounding. Not 0 like you forgot about a few hundred sitting somewhere. 0 like the math at the bottom of the page that doesn't move. 0 like you are 35 years old. You have a job, you have a phone, you have a streaming subscription you keep forgetting to cancel, and you have nothing saved. You close the app. You put the phone face down on the table. And then you do the thing that everyone at 35 with 0 savings does. You don't tell anyone. Not your partner, not your best friend, not the one person in your life who you share everything with. Because there is something about this specific number, this particular kind of empty, that doesn't feel like a problem you're working on. It feels like a verdict, like something has been decided about you. Like if you say the number out loud, it becomes permanent in a way it isn't yet when it's just living quietly in your chest at 2 in the morning. So you don't say it. You pour a glass of water. You watch something on your phone. You think about a plan you'll start tomorrow. Here's the thing about how you got here. It wasn't one decision. It was never one decision. It was 1,000 small ones, each of them completely reasonable at the time. The year the car needed work and the emergency fund went. The period when work was slow and the savings plan paused, and then just sort of never unpaused. The relationship that ended and reorganized your whole financial life in ways you're still untangling. The student loans that ate the margin before there was ever a margin. The city that costs more than it should, and the salary that grew slower than it needed to, and the decade that moved faster than you thought decades could move. You didn't blow it. You just never really started. And now it's 35. And the number is 0. And the silence around that is louder than you expected. You're not alone in that silence. But right now, it feels like you are. It always does. Level 2. The wake up. There's a moment. Everyone who's ever been here has one. A specific, ordinary, unremarkable moment that cracks something open. Maybe it was the medical bill. You didn't think it would be that much. It's never supposed to be that much. But there it is, sitting in the stack of mail you'd been ignoring, a number with too many digits that the insurance didn't cover, and you go to move it from the pile and something in you just stops. Because you don't have a plan for this. You don't have anything for this. There's no account to pull from, no cushion to absorb it. There's just the number, and below it, another number. The payment due date, and between those two numbers, is the full weight of what 0 savings actually means in real life. Not in theory, not as a statistic, as a problem happening to you right now with a due date. Or maybe it was the text from your college roommate. Just closed on the house. 3 words. A photo attached. The front porch. Their kid in the yard. And you sat with the phone in your hand for longer than you meant to, not because you're not happy for them, you are. Genuinely, but because somewhere underneath the genuine happiness is a question you can't quite silence. Not why them, but why not me yet? And the honest answer, the one you don't say out loud, because you have nothing to put down. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was a conversation. Someone asked, casually, the way people do at 35, what your retirement plan looked like. And you gave the answer. You always give the one that sounds like a plan, that uses the right words in roughly the right order, and they nodded, and you moved on. But that night, you lay in the dark, and you replayed what you'd actually said, and you realized it wasn't a plan. It was a placeholder for a plan. It was the verbal equivalent of the app you keep downloading and deleting. It was hope dressed up as strategy. And that's when it hit you. Not the panic, the clarity. The question isn't, how did I get here? The question is, what happens if I stay? Level 3, the reality check. Before we go further, you need to know something. You're not the exception. You're not a cautionary tale. You are so far from alone in this that the data, the actual verified data from the institutions that track these things, will either devastate you or release you. maybe both. According to the Federal Reserve's 2022 survey of consumer finances, the median retirement savings for Americans between the ages of 35 and 44 is around $45,000. The median, which means half the people in your age bracket have less than that. And when you factor in the Americans who have no retirement account at all, no 401k, no IRA, nothing, that number collapses further. The Federal Reserve's own data shows that roughly 1 in 4 working-age Americans has zero retirement savings. 1 in 4. Vanguard's 2023 How America Saves report puts the median 401k balance for workers aged 35 to 44 at $28,000. Not the average, the median. Half of people in your bracket have less. And Fidelity, one of the largest retirement plan administrators in the country, recommends that by age 35, you should have 1 times your annual salary saved. By 40, 3 times. That gap between where most people are and where the benchmarks say you should be, that gap is not a personal failure. That gap is a national condition. Now move north. In Canada, the Canadian Payroll Association's 2023 survey found that 37% of Canadian workers say they live paycheck to paycheck. 37%. And Statistics Canada data shows that a significant portion of Canadians between 25 and 54 have made no RRSP contributions at all. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada reports that the average household debt-to-income ratio sits above 180%. You're not behind the curve, you're in the middle of it. In Australia, the Australian Bureau of Statistics data shows that the average superannuation balance for Australians aged 35 to 39 is approximately $51,000 for men and $36,000 for women. The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia estimates that a comfortable retirement requires roughly $595,000 for a single person. Do the math on that gap. Most people in your age bracket aren't close, not even remotely. None of this is meant to comfort you into complacency. It is meant to pull you out of the shame spiral long enough to actually think clearly. Because the shame is the thing that keeps the number at 0. The shame is what makes you close the app and put the phone face down. The shame is what makes a solvable problem feel like a permanent sentence. So hear this. You are not uniquely broken. You are commonly stuck. And those are completely different things. One of them can be fixed. Level 4. The spiral. But let's be honest about the math. Because you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort. Time is the only thing in personal finance that cannot be recovered. You can earn more money, you can spend less, you can switch jobs, negotiate, side hustle, inherit, get lucky. But the years between 25 and 35, those are gone. And the reason that matters, the specific numerical reason it matters, is a concept you've heard before and probably dismissed before you really let it land. Compound interest. Here's what it actually means in your life. If someone invested $500 a month starting at 25, at a 7% average annual return, by 65, they'd have approximately $1.3 million. That same $500 a month, same 7% return, starting at 35, around $615,000. Same money, same discipline, 10 fewer years, half the outcome. The 10 years between 25 and 35 at $500 a month and a 7% return are worth approximately $700,000 by the time you retire. That is what those years cost. That is the invoice that's sitting in your mailbox right now, not as punishment, just as math. And here's the psychological dimension nobody talks about. It's not just that you're starting late, it's that you know you're starting late, and that knowledge does something to you. It creates a kind of paralysis that looks a lot like procrastination from the outside, but is actually something closer to grief. You're mourning a version of your financial life that didn't happen. The one where 23-year-old you was disciplined and clear-headed and started early, and now 35-year-old you is coasting on a cushion. That version of you doesn't exist. And every time you sit down to start a budget or open an investment account, you brush against that grief. It makes the whole thing feel heavier than it should. It makes starting feel like an admission. The admission that those years are gone. They are. And the sooner you stop fighting that fact, the sooner you can do the only thing that actually matters now. Start. Level 5. The turn. Here is the thing nobody tells you about starting at 35 with zero. You have something 25-year-olds don't have. You have a reason. Not an abstract reason. Not, someday I'd like to be comfortable. A reason with weight. A reason you can feel in your chest. The medical bill. The text from your roommate. The 2 in the morning silence. Those aren't just the things that woke you up. They're fuel. And fuel, directed at the right mechanics, changes everything. Here's what the mechanics actually look like. Not in theory. In practice. The first move is not an investment. The first move is a buffer. $1,000. That's it. $1,000 in a separate, high-yield savings account that you do not touch. Not because $1,000 will save you in a crisis. It won't. But because the absence of any buffer is what turns small problems into catastrophic ones, and catastrophic problems are what drain savings accounts that don't exist yet. The Boston College Center for Retirement Research's National Retirement Risk Index data consistently shows that financial fragility, the inability to absorb unexpected expenses, is one of the primary reasons retirement. Savings never accumulate. Plug the leak first. The second move is automation. Not a plan, not an intention. Automation. The money moves before you see it, before the spending decisions happen. The research is unambiguous on this. Vanguard's behavioral finance data shows that automatic enrollment and automatic contribution escalation in retirement plans dramatically increases savings rates, specifically because it removes the decision from the equation. You are not going to out-willpower the way your brain processes money. Set it up so willpower isn't required. In the US, if your employer offers a 401k match, the minimum starting point is contributing enough to capture that full match. That is a 100% return on your money before any investment growth occurs. If you're self-employed or without a plan. A Roth IRA allows contributions up to $7,000 annually as of 2024, and the tax-free growth on that account is one of the most powerful tools available to a late starter. In Canada, the RRSP contribution limit is 18% of your prior year's earned income up to a federal maximum, with unused room carrying forward. If you've never contributed, you may have accumulated significant room. The TFSA allows up to $95,000 in cumulative contribution room as of 2024 if you've been eligible since inception and never contributed. That's not a small number. In Australia, the superannuation system means your employer is already contributing at least 11% of your earnings into your super fund as of 2024 under the superannuation guarantee. You may not have nothing. You may have something you haven't looked at in years. Log in. Check the balance. Then consider whether voluntary contributions, particularly concessional contributions up to the $27,500 annual cap, make sense given your marginal tax rate. None of this is complicated. The steps are not complicated. The hard part was never the steps. The hard part was the silence, the shame, the closed app. You just walked through that. You're still here. Level 6. The plan. Let's talk about real numbers, because numbers are where vague intention becomes actual movement. If you're in the US at 35 with zero savings, here is what is realistic. Not what's ideal, not what would have been ideal 10 years ago, what is actually achievable from here. At a median US household income of around $75,000 annually, redirecting 15% toward retirement contributions, a combination of a 401k and a Roth IRA, means putting aside approximately $937 a month. At a conservative 7% average annual return, in 30 years at age 65, that is approximately $1.1 million. That is a real number, built from a standing start at 35. The Social Security Administration reports that the average monthly retirement benefit in 2023 was approximately $1,800 at full retirement age. That's roughly $21,600 a year. You cannot retire on that alone. But it means your personal savings don't have to do all the work. Social Security is a floor, not a ceiling. Build above it. In Canada, CPP provides a maximum monthly benefit of approximately $1,364 as of 2024 for those who've contributed the maximum throughout their careers. Old age security adds a further partial benefit. Combined, they are not sufficient for a comfortable retirement. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada is explicit about this, but they are a foundation. Your RRSP and TFSA are what you build on top of it. A Canadian starting at 35, contributing $1,000 per month to a combination of RRSP and TFSA at a 6 to 7% average annual return, can reasonably target $600,000 to $800,000 by 65. That's not a dream. That's arithmetic. In Australia, ASIC's Money Smart calculator, which is publicly available and free to use, shows that a 35-year-old with a current super balance of zero, earning $70,000 annually, with the 11% compulsory employer contribution plus voluntary top-ups of $200 per month, can project a retirement balance in the range of $450,000 to $550,000 by age 67. ASFA's modest retirement standard requires approximately $100,000 in savings for a single person, supplemented by the age pension. The comfortable standard requires approximately $595,000. You're not out of range. Here is the honest caveat. These numbers assume consistency. They assume you don't stop when life gets hard. And life will get hard. There will be years where the contribution drops. There will be expenses that eat the margin. There will be moments where the 35-year-old you is replaced by a 40-year-old you who's tired and a 45-year-old you who's overwhelmed. The plan is not the numbers. The plan is the system that keeps the numbers moving, even when you don't feel like it. Automation. Accounts you can't easily access. Contributions so routine they stop feeling like sacrifice and start feeling like air. You set it up once. You protect it constantly. You increase it whenever you can. That's the plan. It's not elegant, but it works. Level 7. The reframe. Here's what I need you to hear before we close. 35 with zero is not a disqualification. I need you to actually sit with that, not as comfort, not as a platitude, but as a verifiable claim. The National Retirement Risk Index, produced by the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College, has tracked for years that a significant percentage of late starters, people who begin serious retirement saving in their mid to late 30s, can and do reach retirement security when they maintain consistent contributions and make strategic use of tax-advantaged accounts. The math is harder, the runway is shorter, but the destination is not closed to you. John Goodman didn't have consistent income until his 40s. Vera Wang launched her fashion career at 40. Those aren't financial examples, they're something more important. They're evidence that the story doesn't get written by when you started. It gets written by what you do once you decide to start. And there is something else, something that doesn't show up in the compound interest tables. You know something now that you didn't know at 25. You know what it costs to not start. Not in theory, in your body. In the closed app and the 2 a.m. silence and the face-down phone. You know the weight of that zero in a way that someone who's never carried it doesn't. And that knowledge, that specific, hard-won clarity, it is the thing that will keep you going when the novelty of the new plan wears off, and the contribution feels inconvenient, and the future feels too abstract to justify the present sacrifice. The 25-year-old with a retirement account they barely check doesn't have that. You do. You are 35. You have, if you're in good health, potentially 50 years of life ahead of you. 30 years until standard retirement age. 30 years in which the math, as unforgiving as it is, still works in your favor if you begin now. Today. Not with a perfect plan, not with a large number, with something. A small, consistent, automated something that you protect the way you protect anything that matters to you. The shame belongs to the silence, and you just broke the silence. You read this. You sat with the number. You didn't close the tab. That matters more than you know, because the difference between the person who turns it around at 35 and the one who turns 40 with the same problem isn't intelligence or income or opportunity. It is the willingness to look, to stop putting the phone face down, to stop letting the ceiling go unnamed. You named it. Now build past it. The zero is not what you are. It's where you were the day you decided to stop looking away. Write that date down, somewhere. Because someday, not at 65, maybe at 40, maybe at 45, you'll want to remember the exact day the number started to move. The exact day you decided that the silence wasn't protection anymore. It was just a delay. And you're done delaying. Subscribe if this found you at the right time. Because there's more where this came from. And the next one is something you need to see. See you in the next.